Psychogenic hypothermia is a disease of increasing prevalence across North America. It is most commonly seen among hikers, campers, and workers who spend large amounts of time outdoors. Current evidence suggests that it is tick-borne or carried by other insects. To prevent psychogenic hypothermia, minimize time outdoors and in overgrown areas. If you must go into tall grass, brush, or forested areas, wear long sleeves, a hat, and full-length pants. Tuck your pants into your socks to ensure your ankles are protected. Early signs of psychogenic hypothermia include headache, nausea, and low-grade fever. Some people also see migraine-like visual distortions, called auras. A reddish rash, called frost nip rash, may develop on hands, ears, or other exposed skin. If you or a friend develop these symptoms, record the affected person's temperature, note the time, and leave the area immediately. Psychogenic hypothermia should be treated at home. Presently, there is no effective cure for psychogenic hypothermia. Most cases resolve on their own within 48 hours, but some can last several days, or weeks. Remaining in the environment where symptoms began is known to prolong the disease. If the affected person is not removed from this environment within 30 to 50 minutes, he or she should be quarantined at the earliest opportunity. An appropriate quarantine space for psychogenic hypothermia must meet several conditions. Start with a space that has no hot running water, such as a laundry room or walk-in closet. Remove any electrical appliances, and cover the outlets. To ensure the affected person's safety, do not provide any pillows or blankets. Provide only one set of clothes. If the quarantine lasts multiple days, and the affected person is lucid enough to comply, this set may be exchanged. Ensure that there is only one means of egress, and that it can be locked or barricaded from the outside. If you cannot establish safe quarantine within an hour of initial symptoms, be prepared to restrain the affected person. You will know it is time to initiate restraint when his or her temperature has increased from the initial recording by ½ degree centigrade or more. This protocol allows restraint to be established before the prodromal phase is over, while the affected person is still lucid enough to be cooperative. If you notice yourself developing symptoms of psychogenic hypothermia while alone, you have two options. If weather permits and you are in a safe area to do so, you should tie yourself securely to a sturdy object, such as a tree or a large boulder. Do not use climbing anchors, fence posts, or anything else that could be pulled loose. Finding an elevated or sheltered place may make recovery more comfortable. Do not climb the heights you could not fall from without injury. Avoid areas with large populations of animals, or direct exposure to the sun. If you cannot effectively self-isolate, you should return to the nearest populated area as soon as possible. If you can, mark your face, body, or clothes clearly with the symbol on the following slide, using whatever is available to you. Bind your hands thoroughly. The presenter will demonstrate how to do this at the end of the video. As you leave the trigger area, repeat the words, "I am affected by psychogenic hypothermia." Do this for as long as you are able. As sufferers are often found repeating the last words they said while lucid, this measure could help ensure you receive proper treatment. If you are caring for someone with psychogenic hypothermia, do not allow skin-to-skin contact. After the prodromal phase, touch is extremely dangerous. In the first non-lucid phase, affected persons may request skin-to-skin contact, extend their arms for hugs, or cry when contact is refused. An affected person will insist that he or she is cold, regardless of body temperature or the surrounding temperature. At this point, many begin to lose their sense of time and place. In this early phase of the disease, some palliative measures can be taken. Warm drinks, such as hot cocoa or tea, can be offered. Small, soft objects like a stuffed animal or a baby blanket may provide comfort in some cases. Clothing can be warmed in a tumble dryer or before an open oven. For the safety of the affected person and caregivers, Do not serve any food or liquid above 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and ensure that any comfort objects provided can cover no more than a third of the affected person's body. 6 to 12 hours after the first non-lucid stage, the second non-lucid stage will begin. Check the locks on your quarantine space, or the restraints of the affected person, and ensure they are secure. You may want to use earplugs or other hearing protection. Remove loose objects from the affected person's surroundings and turn off all lights. Psychogenic hypothermia is known to cause hallucinations and illusions. The affected person may perceive any source of light as fire. Understand that an affected person will insist that he or she is freezing regardless of any measures taken. He or she will likely scream, cry, or beg. Understand that these are not real reactions, but a manifestation of the disease. Do not approach during this stage. An affected person will stop at nothing to initiate contact with your bare skin. After a further 12 to 18 hours in the second non-lucid stage, the extinction stage will begin. This is the most dangerous stage for the affected person and his or her caregivers. The extinction stage is heralded by a brief, 1 to 3 hour, return to the first non-lucid stage, in the progression of the frost nip rash, which will darken, spread, or blister. Do not assume an apparent improvement indicates recovery. There is no recorded instance of psychogenic hypothermia resolving before the extinction phase. Instead, consider it an opportunity to administer treatment while the affected person is still compliant. A wise caregiver will use this window to administer sedation or further restraint. The affected person may or may not remember his or her behavior in the second non-lucid stage, so creative thinking may be required to communicate that caregivers are acting in his or her best interest. Sedation is the ideal course of action, and in the home setting, a double dose of drowsy cold medication or allergy tablets can be used. Sleep aids such as melatonin are also acceptable. Ensure that the amount of any medication given will not constitute an overdose for the affected person's weight. Once he or she is appropriately sedated, restrain the affected person in a manner appropriate for the extinction phase. If possible, cut the fingernails and toenails short. It is essential that the hands and feet are fully covered. Hand and foot restraints can be easily improvised with household items, such as oven mitts and duct tape. The presenter will demonstrate safe restraint techniques at the end of this presentation. Restrict the use of the affected person's teeth. This can also be done with household items. Place duct tape over the mouth, wrapping it several times around the head to secure it, and carefully cut a small hole through it. This will prevent aspiration or suffocation, but is harder to chew through than a cloth gag. Once the affected person has been restrained as well as facilities allow, leave the quarantine area. Lock and barricade the door. If possible, turn off breaker boxes and water mains to ensure there is no detectable flow of electricity or water into the building. If caring for an affected person outdoors, walk far enough away to ensure you are completely out of earshot. A person in this phase will not understand or respond to language, and your body heat will make them a threat to you. Do not return for at least 8 hours. The extinction stage is the shortest stage, lasting a maximum of 10 hours. If inadequately restrained, an affected person will seek warmth at all costs. Affected persons often walk into fires, bathe in boiling water, or attempt to climb inside the hoods of cars. No amount of heat will be adequate. On failing to find an appropriate heat source, an affected person will seek the body heat of nearby animals. He or she may swallow small birds and mammals whole, attack larger animals and other people, or attempt to access his or her own core temperature through self-mutilation. These behaviors are responsible for the majority of fatalities. When this phase ends, the affected person will regain lucidity. Body temperature will return to normal. The frost nip rash, which will have progressed to resemble severe frostbite, will fade. Folk medicine suggests that skin contact is safe once the rash has faded. This is untrue. Direct touch should be avoided for at least 12 hours after the end of the extinction phase. An affected person is likely to have sustained injuries while attempting to escape restraints. Even when safe restraints are used, sprains, severe bruising, concussion and dislocations are common. Once lucidity has been confirmed, an affected person can safely access or self-administer medical care. Food and water should also be provided as soon as possible, as it is unlikely an affected person will have eaten since the start of the second non-lucid phase. Keep him or her warm, as cold exposure can trigger relapse. Do not allow an affected person to sleep for the first 4 hours after the extinction phase, or if he or she remains disoriented or begins to act uncharacteristically. If you find an affected person asleep during the extinction phase or immediately after it has ended, wait from a distance and contact emergency services. And remember, babies cry before they crawl. C. Cold. Is someone insisting that he or she or the environment is cold? R. Red. Are his or her fingertips, cheeks, and nose turning red? Y. U. Can you feel the cold? Or is it just one person? Q. Quarantine. Build an effective quarantine space. R. Restraint. Initiate restraint before the second non-lucid stage. A. Avoid. Avoid contact with the affected person. W. Wait. Wait for symptoms to resolve. Do not interfere. L. Log. Log early stage temperatures, stage changes, and durations as precisely as possible.